Mayor. All right. Well, we now call this meeting to order, and at this point in time, we will proceed to, if you're able, please rise. Please pay attention to Councilwoman Valdivia Alcala, the invocation, and we will be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Okay, good evening. I would like to introduce Pastor Theodis Williams. He is the pastor at True Holiness Family Church located on the 1200 block of Southeast Republican. The pastor has been with his church for about 20 years now. I'm sure there's much more that I could say about Pastor, but we're going to keep it short and go ahead and come up to the podium. And thank you, Pastor.
Thank you. Let us bow our heads in prayer. Father, we thank you for this amazing opportunity to pray for these leaders, for the city government. God, we know that it takes tremendous insight and perseverance, integrity that they all have. Their leadership quality and ability, I know, are second to none. Let there be a spirit of cooperation, camaraderie. I ask, Father, in the name of Jesus, that you bless them to keep their fingers on the pulse of the needs of this city and all of its citizens as they plan, as they make policies, as they strengthen the infrastructure of this city. I ask that you make them one and keep them safe. In Jesus' name we pray. Thank God and amen.
Amen.
Allegiance to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States.
One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
For all. We now proceed to City Clerk, the roll call.
We have some council members that joined a little bit late, so they're loading in right now.
Okay, who are they?
Emerson and
Okay. So Mayor De La Isla,
Here.
Council Members Hiller. Here. Valdivia Acala.
Here.
Ortiz.
Here.
Emerson.
Here.
Padilla.
Here.
Nager. Dobler.
Here.
Duncan.
Here.
And Lesser.
Here.
We have 10 present.
Hey, I think the city manager wanted to have a second right after the roll call to make an announcement.
Thank you, Mayor. Today, after speaking with Deputy Mayor Emerson, he advised me that he plans to make a motion at next week's meeting to amend ordinance number 20257, which adopted the 2018 Uniform Plumbing Code and amended the Topeka Municipal Code to allow contractors licensed to install city utilities to install and repair and water and sewer lines servicing an industrial or commercial development. His motion will amend the ordinance to repeal those provisions regarding contractors. Additionally, I plan to remove the 1020 agenda item that proposed ordinance establishing a utility contractor license. Felt that was important to inform everyone that may be in the audience to address that item tonight.
Thank you so much, City Manager. Now we move on to the next item on the agenda, and the next item in the agenda is a proclamation. If we could please have our friends of the Human Relations Commission join us in the podium while I give a brief explanation of the award that will be provided today. Today, we are the members of the HRC joining the podium, coming up. You can come up.
Come on.
Okay.
Some more coming in.
Please, if Ms. Montoya could have a microphone, there she goes. All right, so today we're here to present the Troy Scroggins Award to an individual, Marietta Patterson, in an organization, which is New Mount Zion Outreach. The Topeka Human Relations Commission uses the Troy Scroggins Award to recognize individuals and organizations for their efforts in furthering the HRC's mission. And this mission is to ensure fair and equal rights for all citizens of Topeka. So before we pass on the microphone to Ms. Montoya to say a few words, I want to take the time to read the proclamation. And it says, whereas a diverse workforce is made up of individuals who have a wide variety of work skills and talents, as well as unique individual perspectives and life experiences, it is good for an organization and the customers and the community they serve. And whereas employers that hire and maintain a diverse workforce, including those with a disability, hold a competitive edge over their counterparts, both economically and innovatively. And whereas studies show that hiring people with a disability not only provides diversity, but it also provides employees who are more loyal to their employer, take fewer sick days, and are highly motivated to stay within the organization longer. And whereas in this spirit, the city of Topeka wants to raise awareness about the benefits to employers who hire those with a disability by recognizing October as National Disability Employment Awareness Month. And whereas the city encourages the governmental, business, and non-governmental agencies to join us in celebrating all of the contributions of employees with disabilities in their community. Therefore, I, Michelle de la Isla, proclaim October 2020 as National Disability Employment Awareness Month. So we have two big things going on. We have, and the reason that I chose to read the Troy Scroggins Award is because this award is about ensuring equity. We will have some words from our family and friends from the disability community, but I wanted also to acknowledge all of the work that the HRC does. Kim, could you talk to us a little bit about Marietta and why she won the Troy Scroggins Award? And please, if you could give after that the microphone to Marietta to talk to us a little bit about her work at New Mount Zion.
Thank you. Again, Commissioner Kim Montoya. The Troy Scroggins Award has been in place since 2008. The first Troy Scroggins Award honoree was award's namesake. It is Mr. Scroggins' achievements in addressing discrimination and prejudice and advancing diversity that has helped create a model city today. To date, the Human Relations Commission has awarded 9 individuals and 6 organizations with this award. We are once again honored to be giving 2 awards this evening. One will be awarded to an individual and one to an organization. We will start with the individual. Dr. Burl A. New, Director of Certified Human Resources and Equity, Topeka Public School, USD 501, nominated Ms. Marietta Marty Patterson. I would like to read a little bit of her nomination. Ms. Patterson initiated, masterminded, engineered, and completed many projects related to highlighting the remaining living plaintiffs in the Brown versus Topeka Board of Education case and ensuring that each had the opportunity to share their stories, as Ms. Linda Brown Smith had done for many years. If the plaintiffs were no longer alive, she recognized their children so that they could share their stories they had heard. She ensured that the histories of McKinley L. Burnett, Catherine Sawyer, will live on in the annal of the publication Black Post. It is a National Archives biographies of notable African Americans, both past and current. She introduced Ms. Sawyer once again to the Topeka community through news articles and by arranging her opportunity to share the story with Topeka Public Schools Equity Council. Ms. Patterson is a tireless cheerleader for every organization in Topeka, which promotes equity, community awareness, and racial justice. She is fearless and she is relentless. She is a quiet leader and a very humble servant. With that said, it is great honor and privilege to present the 2020 Troy Scroggins Individual Award to Ms. Marietta Marty Patterson. The Topeka Human Relations Commission honors this outstanding individual for her service to Topeka, capturing hidden African American stories, both written and oral, and ensuring opportunities for stories to be told and recorded, thereby promoting equity, community awareness, and racial justice. We congratulate Ms. Marty Patterson. Unfortunately, she was not able to attend tonight, so we have Dr. Burl New, who will be accepting the award on her behalf.
Well, thank you, Ms. Montoya, and thank you, Mayor de la Isla, and all of the commission, and for the HRCC. It is an honor to accept this on behalf of Ms. Marty Patterson. I think the words that I shared with the commission really speak to just a portion of the work that she does. She regrets that she can't be here tonight, but truly she is someone who has made a difference in Topeka and even throughout our nation with the work that she's done here. So I'm proud to accept it for her.
Thank you.
Thank you
I am
so much.
Commissioner Lorraine Williams, and we are truly honored to present this award to the New Mount Zion Missionary Baptist Church, and on behalf, and to Pastor White and his congregation. And Betty McFrazier is the one who honored them, and she's been a longtime member of that congregation. And they have done and still doing worthy work in that church. And some of the things that they've done, that they do, they give prom dresses. And I don't know, some of us ladies we can appreciate that. They do prom dresses, and I know the haircuts that they do for the little boys every year, and those things are so appreciative. And they don't do it they do it for anybody and for everybody. So they don't discriminate, and these are just some of the things that they do. And we are so honored to be able to present to them this award that, on behalf of the Topeka Human Relations Commission, this Troy Scroggins Award is presented to the New Mount Zion Outreach Ministry. And the Human Relations Commission honors this outstanding organization for their service to Topeka, and being a leading force in providing equal opportunities to all children where they can explore, create, discover, and learn through play. The Topeka Human Relations Commission, Tuesday, October 13th of 2020. And Mrs. McFrazier can't be here tonight, but Mrs. Davis is going to accept this award on her behalf and the New Mount Zion Missionary Baptist Church.
I would like to say thank you very much for this honor. What we try to do is do as many outreach things in the community to give resources and bring awareness, and we try to do it mostly to the east side for the people that are not able to get out and find out what's going on. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now I would love to hear from our friends who are celebrating and brought forth the National Disability Employment Awareness Month. I see some in the Zoom room. Anybody would like to say a few words about this month being National Disability Employment Awareness Month?
I will. Thank you for recognizing October as National Disability Employment Awareness Month. My name is Kennedy George. I have worked at Topeka Independent Living Resource Center for 27 years, advocating for justice, equality, and essential services for people with disabilities. One of the parts of my job I like the most is helping other people with disabilities find employment. When I read your proclamation, the one thing that popped out at me was the loyalty of people with disabilities. I know many people, including myself, with disabilities who don't call in sick as much, take fewer days off, work hard, really like what they do. So thank you for the proclamation.
And thank you for joining us today, and thank you for helping us celebrate this month. She talked about the Topeka Independent Living, and there's businesses in our community. I don't know if you guys all know that Dialogue Coffee Shop is an amazing place where most of the individuals there are individuals with disabilities, and it's phenomenal. So make sure that you take a look at those businesses that are uplifting equity in every aspect, to include having individuals of all abilities being here. Kim, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you.
Okay, at this point in time, I kind of jumbled because we typically do Troy Scroggins at the same time that we do the proclamations. But at this point in time, we do move on to the appointments. If the clerk would read.
A is an advisory council appointment of Joe Charest to the City of Topeka Americans with Disabilities Act ADA Advisory Council for a term ending September 30, 2022. B is a board appointment recommending the appointment of Cassandra Taylor to the Board of Building and Fire Appeals for a term ending December 31, 2021. C is a board appointment recommending the appointment of Wendy Wells to the Topeka Housing Authority Advisory Board to fill an unexpired term ending December 31, 2023. D is a board appointment recommending the reappointment of Matthew Warner to the Topeka Planning Commission for a term ending September 30, 2023.
We have heard the appointments. The mayor does not have a vote in this. What is the pleasure of the body?
Motion to approve.
Councilman Padilla motions to approve. Do we have a second? Second. We have a second by Councilwoman Hiller. Comments or questions on the appointments? Seeing none, we vote by the roll call.
Council members Hiller,
Yes.
Valdivia Acala,
Yes.
Ortiz. Yes. Emerson,
Yes.
Padilla,
Yes.
Nager,
Yes.
Dobler,
Yes.
Duncan,
Yes.
and Lesser.
Yes.
We have 9 yes, the motion passes.
9 having voted yes, the motion carries. At this point in time, we do move on to the presentations, and now we go into the
Mayor?
city of, hello?
All four are here.
Oh, wonderful. So sorry. Please, let's recognize the individuals that are here. Thank you so much for your service to our community. We sincerely appreciate you being part of our commissions and our boards, and we are ever grateful for your service. Thank you so much. Please, let's recognize these selfless individuals. Councilman Lesser.
Well, I don't know, I can't see it as I'm zooming this, if my appointment, Ms. Charest, is there tonight or not?
Yes.
I would just like to point out my nomination of Ms. Charest to the Americans with Disabilities Act Council, which is kind of goes well with tonight's proclamation. The other thing this does is, many of you may not know, but 3 years ago, Ms. Charest and I ran against each other for our seat. And shortly after that, the way politics should work is the way it works with us, is we became friends, and I've relied on her to keep me involved in the community. She's a tireless advocate for disability rights, and more importantly, her son who has some disabilities. More importantly, I got to meet and become friends with her son Anthony, who got his new skateboard the other day. So that's the way things should work. So I'm very excited that she's able to join the council as this appointment. So thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Thank you for that flag. I appreciate all of you showing up. Now we do move on to item 4, which is the presentations. And the presentation that we have ahead of us is City of Topeka Health and Plan Overview. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight, Denise Mills, the Director of Health and Benefits Brokerage and Advisory for Willis Towers Watson, will talk to us and present information related to our health plan. This was something that was discussed during the budget time, that it would be good for the governing body to have a better understanding of our health plan and how it works for the employees and the historical nature of our costs and so forth. So tonight, Denise will go through that and present that information. In addition, I know that there are other staff members that handle our benefits that are available to answer questions at the end if needed. So, Denise?
Yes, good evening, and thank you very much. Thank you so much for inviting us to participate. I'm going to be sharing our brief time here with my colleague, Rick Kilburn, who is our Senior Financial Director with Willis Towers Watson. He is an underwriter, and he's going to be going through some of the financial data. I'm going to try and share a screen. Do I have permission to do that?
Yes, you should. If you don't, just let me know and all.
Okay. So if you want to let me know if you're able to see this, that would be great. Yes?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Again, thank you for allowing us a few minutes of your time. We're going to talk briefly about the health plan from the time that we became involved in it. We're going to go through some historical costs, and then we probably will not have time, but we've got some supplemental information that is included that I think will tie this all back together. So if you have questions as we're going through, please let us know. So the city of Topeka has a self-funded medical and prescription drug program that is administered by Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Kansas. And the members are able to use the National Blue Card network of providers. So in addition to Blue Cross adjudicating claims, the city also purchases medical stop loss from them. This includes an individual stop loss at a level of $150,000 and also aggregate stop loss coverage that is set at 120% of expected annual claims to protect the plan against catastrophic losses. So what did she just say? Let me back up just a second and explain. So self-funded plans are comprised of the general assets of the city and the payroll deductions that the plan participants or the employees pay. That goes into the general assets. And as claims come through, the city is billed by Blue Cross after they administer and approve it, and the bills are paid. In order to protect the plan, we set an individual stop loss at $150,000. That means, let's say someone has a $200,000 claim that comes through. The city buys reinsurance. They pay a premium for that. And so they would only have a responsibility up to that $150,000. In addition, we have suggested, and the city has purchased, aggregate stop loss coverage. And that is set at 120% of what we expect or budget the claims to be in any given calendar year. And really think of that as the difference between being fully insured and just paying a premium and walking away, and the risk. That's that 120%, that 20% corridor is really the risk that the city assumes. The reason we purchase and suggest that you purchase the aggregate stop loss is there are years where anomalies happen, not very often. In fact, I would say very rarely, although the city, since we've been consulting, has had it happen 2 times, 2 years in a row. Sometimes you have a lot of claims that don't quite hit that $150,000 individual, but together, collectively, it makes it more expensive. So it's very inexpensive to purchase, and we felt strongly at the size of the city and the number of employees that this would really be good protection against catastrophic losses. The pharmacy benefit manager, that's the prescription drug manager, is Elixir, or they've just now rebranded. They are formerly known as MedTrack. Willis Towers Watson was lucky enough to be awarded a consulting contract with the city in August of 2011. We did a fairly in-depth review, both of the plan designs and the financials, and we determined that we call them premium equivalents. Premium equivalents, think of that as the budget. How much money do we need to budget to pay the claims for a given plan year? So we determined that those premium equivalents, or the funding of the plan, was way too low. And as a result, the city had been using health plan reserves to fund the claims that left those reserves completely depleted. In fact, at the end of 2011, the risk reserve fund and the general fund had to be dipped into in order to cover the expense liability that remained for that year. Since that time, we've revamped, worked with the city on the funding levels to get them to the appropriate levels. We suggested, as I said earlier, that you purchase aggregate stop loss as a safety net. And over the years, the city has made a number of plan changes, particularly around wellness, and has been able to build the health plan reserves to align with the city's standard established finance reserve policy. In 2015, the city added an on-site health clinic managed by HealthStat. There was a full request for proposal. A number of different vendors were participated, but HealthStat was selected. They provide a lot of services, a lot of preventive health services and screenings, overall health management or some lifestyle coaching of employees and dependents, and also they can provide episodic healthcare needs. So if you think about this, HealthStat, with your on-site nurse practitioner, it's really at the center of the population health. So I like to think of this as hub and spokes, if that makes sense to you. So, Leah's there, she's kind of at the center of things, and she works with Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Kansas and their programs. She works with the pharmacy benefit manager, Elixir, and TRIA's disease management program. So the goal of all of these things is to identify and close gaps in care, keep your members healthy, be able to provide a stable and sustainable program of exceptional benefits for many, many years. So as part of this process, we're sharing data. So the clinic data is shared with Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Kansas and with Willis Towers Watson. Blue Cross and Blue Shield shares their data with us as well. And we have kind of a data, for lack of a better term, kind of a data aggregating warehouse where we take all these lines and lines and lines of claims. And that allows us a way to monitor and manage the overall plan performance. And just as an FYI, all of this information is de-identified. So I don't know if it's Susie Smith or Sam Jones. It's all de-identified. So with all these things working together, the city has built a robust wellness program designed to reward positive behavior for members in an effort to reduce overall health risks. You would think that people would just do the right thing because that's what they should do, but sometimes it's a what's in it for me. It's kind of a carrot and stick. I hate to say that, but that's kind of the way it is. So employees are able to participate in a number of events and earn points to achieve reduced payroll contributions. In addition, there's points available for completing a health risk assessment for employee and their spouses, along with points awarded for reviewing the results with the wellness clinic. You know, the goal is not just to have somebody fill out a form. The goal is for them to fill out the form and then come in and talk to a clinical expert about the results of that form and things that they might do to close gaps or change their lifestyle. The combination of the clinic, the wellness and disease management programs in an effort to manage these overall health risks is working. It's working extremely well. And I'm going to turn this over to my colleague, Rick Kilburn, who's going to talk about all things financial. And then, as I said earlier, at the end, there's some supplemental pages in here to kind of help support our confidence and how well these programs are working. So I'm going to stop for just a second and see if anybody has a question before I turn this over to Rick.
Any questions for Ms. Mills from the body? Councilman Lesser.
Yeah, I missed it, the introduction of who they are and who they're with. I'm sorry.
They're with Towers Watson?
We're with Willis. We're with Willis Towers Watson. We are a health and brokerage global consulting organization, and we sit on the city side of the table to help manage the program, the risks, help bring ideas to the table, just on and consult on a day-to-day basis as needed.
The only other question is that also who we had prior doing the P&C city manager?
Doing our property?
Yeah, property casualty.
No, that was Gallagher.
Okay, I was just trying to get all my ducks in line here.
Correct. That was Gallagher that did our property and liability coverage, and so that's who we had for that area.
Great. She's really off the hook then now. All right.
I was going to say, we're happy to take that role on.
Well,
so,
okay.
Any other questions?
Other questions before we proceed? Councilwoman Hiller, is that a hand I see?
I have some questions about exactly what is counted in the clinic, in the visit count, as well as in the cost counts. If that's going to be covered by the next speaker, I can wait.
It is not.
Okay.
Is Jackie Russell on the line?
She is.
I am. Yes. Councilmember Hiller, we were trying to this evening provide a high-level overview of the health plan and the overall health of the financial health of the plan. I'd be happy to get clinic visit information you have, but the presentation in the short 10 minutes that we had allotted for this evening, we were not getting that far into the details. If you would like to email me your specific questions, or if you would like us to come back with a more detailed follow-up presentation on the clinic visits, we'd be happy to do that.
If I could ask just, Mayor, 3 quick questions, and then if they're simple answers, that's some, for starters, those are yes or no.
Ma'am, proceed.
Are the clinic visits included in the visit counts in the charts that were given to us?
Let me say sort of. So we had been working with Blue Cross and Blue Shield and HealthStat for a long time in order for us to be able to send clinic claims to Blue Cross to have them processed as a $0 claim. We were able to do that in 2019. So the answer is yes, we're doing that, but I believe that there may be a few slides in here that cover a couple of years. So we may be missing some data, but on a go-forward basis, we're capturing visits. Most importantly is we are capturing within the financials that Rick is going to speak to all of the associated costs. So not just the cost of the clinic, but all the ancillary costs around that as well.
That was my next question. So all the costs of the clinic are included in these analyses? Absolutely. Okay, and third question is, have we compared that line of, it makes sort of a natural run between kind of good years where there weren't that many illnesses or serious illnesses and ones where there were a lot. Have we compared that to the corresponding time period, let's say 7 years, prior to starting the bigger plan?
Yes, I think Rick's going to cover that in the next slide. So we went back to 2014, and there is just going to be, it's going to make your eyes cross. I'm sorry to tell you this, but there's a lot of data. And if you don't mind, I'd like to go ahead and move the slide deck forward and let Rick talk. And then I think some of your questions may be answered. Would that be okay?
Yes, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Rick?
Yes, hello all. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so as Denise mentioned, we've captured data from 2014 through August of 2020. A lot of the information that we're showing, we're not including 2020 just because it's a partial plan year, but you can see it titled at the top with the various years. And I'll walk down just to explain what we're showing here. So you can see in 2014, we're showing the average number of employees. That was 1,104. You are showing the gross medical claims cost, the gross prescription drug claims cost, and then as Denise mentioned, you've got that stop loss in place that protects you on high cost claimants. So we are backing out the claims that were reimbursed over those individual stop loss deductible. And then we're showing everything on a net claims cost on a per employee per year basis. So as your enrollment fluctuates, this helps us look at things on an apples to apples basis year over year. The next is we're capturing all the administrative fees, stop loss premiums that were paid for that coverage. And then in that pink highlighted box, you'll see kind of everything on a total basis between claims and fixed costs. And we're looking at all of that over a year-over-year basis. We've also included what the actual budget was for each of those years, and then how the plan performed in relation to that budget. So I won't go through each year, but I did want to point out a few highlights. So if you go to the far right-hand side, you can see the total plan cost for City of Topeka in that box highlighted at the top, $10,191. And then based on Willis Towers Watson financial benchmark survey data, you can see how the city performed in relation to that. And I can tell you in 2020, you're actually doing better than the 10,191, and we hope that does continue. Also flagged over to the right, you can see what we call your 5-year trend on a per employee per year basis. So in total, over this 5-year period, claims on a per employee per year basis have increased about 8% each year. The most recent 3-year period, you can see you're actually trending much more favorably at a -2%. So the flag down at the bottom there to the right, this is including all your fixed costs as well as claims. And you can see it's pretty much in line with the trend that we talked about just specific to your claims, that your 5-year trend has been about 9%, 3-year a -1. So we started to look at, some of the timing between when some of the programs were put in place. I think 2015 was kind of the start. So we are looking at, if you look at the bottom part of the page, I think what is driving some of the more favorable costs in the most recent 3-year period, there is evidence that with more touches with a healthcare provider, removing some of the barriers that you've done with your on-site clinic, you can see there we are tracking the high-cost claims. So from 2014 through 2016, you had, in this case, we're tracking claims over 50% of your stop-loss deductible, or those over $75,000. You had an average of 12 of those claimants per year at a cost of $200,271 per claimant. So from 2017 through 2019, and this is where we're seeing some of the more favorable trends for the city, you are averaging now 9 of those high-cost claimants, and you can also see that the severity and cost per claimant has greatly reduced. I can't prove beyond a reasonable doubt that these things that were put in place have caused this, but evidence would suggest that, again, with people having more easy access to care, evidence would suggest that things are being maybe caught earlier, and therefore the cost associated with these have also improved. I know that's a lot of information here, but again, trying to boil down to highlights. One other thing I can tell you that, medical trend is estimated to be anywhere from 7 to 10% year over year, just based on inflation. And I think definitely from 2017 through the current year, it would suggest that things that have been put in place, wellness programs, on-site clinic, have certainly bent that trend in a very positive way. With that, I will ask if anyone has any questions, or if I can shed any light on anything that's on here that anyone has questions about.
Additional questions, comments? Councilwoman Hiller?
Quick question for Jackie. What year were the retirees fully phased out?
Are you talking about from the 2010 retirement incentive?
Well, when there was a requirement that when basically the retirees got taken off the medical plan and told that they had to use their Social Security and they couldn't use it.
Well, Councilmember Hiller, I believe that was implemented in 2012. I can research that and get your exact, but for clarification, we do continue to allow retirees to stay on our plan until they're age 65 or Medicare eligible, whichever.
Additional comments or questions?
We missed some of that answer, but
Yeah.
I think we got the most of it.
Jackie, could you repeat the answer? Apparently it was, you did cut off for a second.
Okay, it might be my internet connection. I apologize. Currently, retirees are able to stay on the city's health plan until they reach age 65 or become Medicare eligible, whichever occurs first.
Okay. But prior, at some point as we converted, people were staying on past age 65, and there was a time when we cut that off, correct?
Yes, and I will research and follow up with the body with that exact date. I have in my mind that it was 2012 or 2014, but I will research that and follow up.
Thank you.
Jackie, will you cover too what the premium expense that the retirees pay versus an employee? Make sure that it showed the difference.
Sure. So retirees are required to pay 125% of the premium equivalent, and that is capped by Kansas state statute. And so the premium equivalents that we set for our employees are 100% of expected based on the tier that they enroll in. Retirees pay 125% of that.
Does that answer your question, Councilwoman?
Yes, I may have some others, but I think we're going to be looking at this anyway. I appreciate the wellness incentives and I appreciate the presentation. So thank you.
Wonderful. Additional comments or questions for the team? Seems like there's none. Jackie, anything else that you or the team would like to add?
The only thing that I would add is I really appreciate Denise and Rick spending time with us this evening and helping explain this information. If there is any follow-up information that the body has about our health plan or the wellness programs, we are happy with future presentations or answer questions to make sure that you're getting the information you need. We've worked really hard since the health fund went broke at the end of 2011 to try to stabilize this plan and also reinstate benefits that we had to make some tough decisions when the fund went broke. So we've gradually been able to enhance the plan as well as maintain the premiums pretty steady for our employees over the last several years. They're not seeing increases that a lot of employees see for their group health coverage. And we are happy to say that we've also built a healthy reserve so that if there is anything catastrophic or unexpected, that the fund can handle that without having to rely on risk reserve or the general fund to pay liabilities. But I welcome any additional questions, and myself or Shelby or the Willis team, we'd be happy to respond to those questions.
I'm waiting to see if the body has any questions before we wrap up the presentation. Seeing none, thank you so much for the presentation. And sorry that I jumbled the name a little bit.
No, well, we're scheduled to make it a lot easier here. The probably second quarter of 2021, we are going to be acquired by Aon. So that'll make it real simple. One word, three-letter word. So thank you all so much for this opportunity. And please don't hesitate to reach out if you do have questions.
Thank you. Okay, we now move on to the consent agenda. If the clerk would read.
A are minutes of the regular meeting of October 6, 2020, and there are no applications.
What is the pleasure of the body?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion for approval by Councilman Padilla, a second one by Councilwoman Nager. Comments or questions about the consent agenda as presented? Seeing none, we proceed with the votes.
Mayor De La Isla?
Yes.
Council members Hiller?
Yes.
Valdivia Aquila?
Yes.
Ortiz?
Yes.
Emerson,
Yes.
Padilla,
Yes.
Nager,
Yes.
Dobler,
Yes.
Duncan,
Yes.
and Lesser.
Yes.
We have 10 yes, the motion carries.
Motion carries. We now move on into the action items. Action item A, if the clerk would read.
A is an ordinance introduced by City Manager Brent Trout annexing land to the City of Topeka, Kansas in accordance with KSA 10-520, located at the southwest corner of Northwest 25th Street and Northwest Button Road and within unincorporated Shawnee County, Kansas, and adjacent to the City of Topeka corporate limits, and said land being annexed for all city purposes.
City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. The annexation request was reviewed and presented at the last meeting as a discussion item. If you I have no further additional information for this evening, so we would recommend approval of this annexation request.
Any questions or comments from the governing body? Councilwoman Hiller.
I have one, and it would really apply to all the zoning and planning items that we're looking at. Just a question regarding COVID procedures. For instance, on this one, there was no public meeting, and the consideration by the planning department was very brief. And maybe we didn't need a public meeting for this one, but I just wanted to check overall what we're doing in terms of inviting the neighbors on these and how we are getting and recording the feedback.
I'll let Director Finder cover that.
Thank
I know
you.
that we have been doing some types of efforts to be able to accomplish that. Make sure that individuals are very aware of what's going on in their neighborhood when we're considering. So I'll let Bill cover it in more detail.
Sure, Councilwoman Hiller, we are continuing to do what we call neighborhood information meetings with anything that comes to the council eventually or through the planning commission. That we're just doing those in a virtual setting. So we do send out notices still to folks that are in the radius of that property. And we invite them to a virtual presentation. So we've been continuing to do that.
And just so we know, I mean, if, for instance, on this one, maybe nobody responded, but if there is a response, is that going into some sort of a record in lieu of the normal record of the sponsor?
So when we have a neighborhood information meeting, it's incumbent upon the applicant to provide a record of that meeting.
Correct.
So yes, those are still happening. If there are no comments or input from the meeting, you would not have that as part of the.
I would suggest, just for the good of the order, that that there be a statement that's entered into the Planning Commission record and ours that was offered and there were no responses, just so we all know it happened in the future.
Well, there is in the staff report. So
Okay.
the staff report does cover the public meeting, or the
Okay.
neighborhood meeting.
So I didn't read all the way through.
Okay.
My bad.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions? Seeing no questions, what is the pleasure of the body? Councilman Lesser moves for approval. Do we have a second? Councilman Padilla seconds. Any comments or questions with regards to the annexation? Seeing none, we proceed by voting.
Mayor De La Isla,
Yes.
Council Members Hiller,
Yes.
Valdivia Aqua,
Yes.
Ortiz,
Yes.
Emerson,
Yes.
Padilla,
Yes.
Nager,
Yes.
Dobler,
Yes.
Duncan,
Yes.
and Lesser.
Yes.
We have 10 yes, motion carries.
10 having voted yes, the motion carries. Now we move on to item B, if the clerk would read.
B is an ordinance introduced by City Manager Brent Trout, amending the district map referred to and made a part of the zoning ordinances by Section 1850-050 of the Topeka Municipal Code by providing for certain changes in zoning on property located at 3440 Southeast 29th Street from R1 Single Family Dwelling District to M2 Multiple Family Dwelling District.
City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight's zoning request will be reviewed by Bill Finder, our Planning and Development Director.
Okay. Excuse me. Okay, the first three items here. The first is a rezoning at Southeast 29th and Croco area, the northwest corner. The owner here has a residential property that he would like to convert to a higher intensity use, namely conversion of the house to two-family, as well as a future build-out of the property for 3 duplexes. The area, or this request, is consistent with the future land use map for the area, which envisions a higher intensity node here at this intersection. It is surrounded by commercial on either side, but this would be an appropriate transition for more intensity. So with that in mind, the Planning Commission did recommend approval, and staff as well. So I'll stand for any questions on this.
Questions for Mr. Fyander? Seems that there's none. This is one of those items in which we have to disclose. If we have any ex parte communication, it is important for the governing body to understand that any sort of information that they have received, whether communications with individuals pro or against this item, documents, emails are all considered ex parte communication. And this is the opportunity that everybody on the body has to disclose whether they have had ex parte communication and to let us know that they will be able to render a vote unbiased with this information. Councilman Evers, Deputy Mayor.
Yes, Mayor. Mayor EL-KOUBYSI, this is in my district, and he did contact me just to talk about this project. Nevertheless, I'm able to render an impartial vote.
Wonderful. Doesn't seem like there's anybody else. This time, we have all disclosed ex parte information, and at this moment, if there is the pleasure, what is the pleasure of the body?
Move for approval.
We have a motion by Councilwoman Nager, a second by the Deputy Mayor. Additional comments or questions? Seeing none, we proceed by voting.
Mayor De La Isla?
Yes.
Council members Hiller?
Yes.
Valdivia Acula?
Yes.
Ortiz?
Yes.
Emerson?
Yes.
Padilla?
Yes.
Nager?
Yes.
Dobler?
Yes.
Duncan?
Yes.
And Lesser.
Yes.
We have 10 yes, motion carries.
10 having voted yes, we now move on to the next ordinance. Ordinance C, if the clerk would read.
C is an ordinance introduced by City Manager Brent Trout, amending the district map referred to and made a part of the zoning ordinances by Section 1850-050 of the Topeka Municipal Code by providing for certain changes in zoning on property located at 700 Southwest Washburn Avenue from M3 Multiple Family Dwelling District to MS1 Medical Services District.
City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. This is another zoning request change, and Director Finer will go through the details.
Thank you. Thank you again. This next zoning item is located at the southeast corner of Southwest 7th and Washburn in the Old Town neighborhood. The proposal is for the Stormont VAIL Cancer Center to expand their complex to include a pharmacy on a piece of property that formerly housed an apartment complex, which is why you have M3 zoning there. The neighborhood plan for the area does support a medical district, medical services district, and so this is completely in alignment with that plan. So we, both staff and Planning Commission did recommend approval for the rezoning to medical services. I'll stand for questions.
Any questions for Mr. Fyander? Just with the previous motion, this is one in which if we have received any ex parte communication, it is the duty of the governing body to make sure that they disclose such, and also disclose that even after receiving such ex parte communication, you are able to make an impartial vote. So at this point in time, I open it up so that if anybody has any disclosures they would like to make, this is your time. Seeing none, what is the pleasure of the body? Councilman Dobler makes a motion. Do we have a second? Councilman Nager? Councilwoman Heller, do you have a question?
No, I was going to make the motion. I'm fine.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second at this point in time. Are there any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we proceed by voting.
Mayor De La Isla?
Yes.
Council members Hiller?
Yes.
Valdivia Aquila?
Yes.
Ortiz?
Yes.
Emerson?
Yes.
Padilla?
Yes.
Nager?
Yes.
Dobler?
Yes.
Duncan?
Yes.
And Lesser.
Yes.
We have 10 yes, motion carries.
Motion carries. Now we move on to item D, if the clerk would read.
D is acceptance of the land dedications in the final plat for Timber Ridge Subdivision Number 2, located generally at the southeast intersection of Southwest Timber Ridge Lane and Southwest 53rd Street. The center line of the tract being approximately 1,000 feet south of the Southwest 53rd Street along the east side of Southwest Timber Ridge Lane, all being within the City of Topeka urban growth area and 3-mile extraterritorial jurisdiction and within unincorporated Shawnee County, Kansas.
City Manager.
Planning and Development Director Bill Finder will explain the dedication of land for the Timber Ridge subdivision, which is part of the process for this addition of subdivision. Excuse me.
Thank you once again. This is a major plat before the governing body. You don't get to see these very often. The reason you are seeing this tonight, there is a dedication of a new road, as well as there are more than 5 lots being created. So anytime that happens, we do bring those before you as a major plat. This one in particular is happening outside the city limits within our urban growth area. The subdivision itself was developed around it in the last 10 years and was really facilitated by an extension of city sanitary sewer services to take the Washburn Rural High School property off of lagoon system as mandated by the state. So this happened about 10 years ago. As part of that extension of a sanitary sewer by the city, there was a participation agreement between this developer, owner of this land, as well as the school district and the city. So normally when we changed the rules about 5 years ago so that normally when a property goes on city sewer outside the city, they'd have to be annexed. In this case, we also wrote in some exceptions, and this is the case here where if you had a previous agreement prior to those rules changing or had previous plats in place that committed the city to serving the property for sewer, you would just have to consent. You wouldn't have to be annexed into the city to get that service. So that is the case here. Actually, this particular property was where the lagoon was going to go for this subdivision when it was platted back in the 90s. So they're taking this 10-acre piece and creating 6-acre piece and creating 10 lots, 10 new lots out of it. And I expect this will be one of several more phases that you'll probably end up seeing here in the future. As you heard, this is a land acceptance. The Planning Commission has already approved the plat as meeting our land use and growth management plan. So you're here to take action to accept the land dedications as part of that process. So I'll stand for any questions at this time.
Questions for Mr. Fyander? There's no questions for Mr. Fyander. What is the pleasure of the body?
Do we need to do ex parte?
Motion to accept and approve.
Okay, so we have a motion by Councilman Padilla and second by Councilman Lesser. Additional comments or questions for our team? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Although I don't think there's any real conflict here, my company is doing some of the development work out here for Mr. Dolmeyer. So therefore, I think it's best that I abstain from this vote.
Councilman Dobler?
Similarly, Bartlett West did the plat, although I don't think that's, we're not approving the plat, we're just accepting property. I think it's probably best if I abstain as well. Thank you.
Okay. Well, if there's no other comments or questions, we proceed with the vote.
Mayor De La Isla?
Yes.
Council members Hiller?
Yes.
Valdivia Aquila?
Yes.
Ortiz?
Yes.
Padilla?
Yes.
Nager?
Yes.
Duncan?
Yes.
And Lesser.
Yes.
We have 8 yes with 2 abstentions. The motion carries.
All right, we move on to the next item, item E, if the clerk would read.
E is approval of the 2-year labor agreement for AFT Kansas Local 6406 effective January 1, 2021 through December 31, 2022.
City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Last week, in a closed session, the City Council discussed the AFT labor agreement, and the information that was provided outlined the changes that were enacted, or I should say presented and negotiated. The AFT membership has ratified this contract and this labor agreement, and I'm available to answer any questions that you may have regarding the terms of the agreement.
Questions for Jackie or the team? Seems that there's no questions or comments. What is the pleasure of the body?
Move approval.
Councilman Dobler moves approval. Do we have a second? Councilwoman Nager seconds that motion. We have a motion and a second. Additional comments or questions before we move on to approvals? Seeing none, we proceed by voting.
Mayor De La Isla?
Yes.
Council members Hiller?
Yes.
Valdivia Aquila?
Yes.
Ortiz?
Yes.
Emerson?
Yes.
Padilla?
Yes.
Nager?
Yes.
Dobler?
Yes.
Duncan?
Yes.
And Lesser.
Yes.
We have 10 yes, the motion carries.
Motion carries. Therefore, we now move on to item F. If the clerk would read.
F is approval of funding recommendations by the Alcohol and Drug Abuse Advisory Council in the amount of $620,000 for the 2021 Special Alcohol Fund.
City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. This item was discussed last week. We presented the locations and amounts for the funding, and staff is available if there are questions.
Any questions with regards to the allocation of the grants? Our thoughts and prayers remain with Max and his family, and with homeless as well. 2 amazing men in our community dedicated to serving. There's no questions or comments. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Deputy Mayor makes a motion. Councilman Padilla seconds this motion. Additional comments or questions? Seeing none, we proceed by voting.
Mayor De La Isla?
Yes.
Council members Hiller?
Yes.
Valdivia Aquila?
Yes.
Ortiz?
Yes.
Emerson?
Yes.
Padilla?
Yes.
Nager?
Yes.
Dobler?
Yes.
Duncan?
Yes.
And Lesser.
Yes.
We have 10 yes, motion carries.
Motion carries. We now move on to the non-action items. If the clerk would read the next item.
A is a discussion on the financial approach of transitioning the operation of the Topeka Zoo to the Friends of the Topeka Zoo, FOTS, through a public-private partnership.
I don't know if I'm going to call on City Manager or on Brendan to continue this conversation from last week. City Manager, what do you want me to do?
Call on Brendan. He's ready.
Brendan, do we have the FOTS crew with you so that I could recognize some individuals?
Well,
I see Pat here online. Is Representative Patton in the chambers?
yes, Mayor. Representative Patton is in the chambers. Board President Pat Cawley Actually, I can't see who all is online.
Well, Representative Patton, welcome to the chambers again. We're always delighted to have you here with us. So Brendan, take it away.
Okay.
There was someone else on here, but.
Yes, I do see Pat Colley. Pat is the board chair, Friends of the Topeka Zoo, works in the community with SE2, is a brilliant risk manager, and there's no one more fun to have as your board chair than a risk manager. So, I mean that in the best possible way, Pat. Anyway, yes, we are here to continue that conversation. If there's a piece of good news tonight, it's my presentation is going to be much briefer. Tonight we had scheduled to really dig into the management and license fee conversation. And being very upfront about this, we are in that conversation now. And as you might understand, it's a very complicated conversation. So quite frankly, it's going to take a few more weeks to get through that. I'm going to wrap up my presentation with a revised timeline that is the last page of the PowerPoint presentation that we're going to go through. But since we did attach this to the agenda, and since some of it can be useful as background information for the governing body, I am going to go ahead and hit some of the highlights. So as you might remember, we talked about a couple different components to a license and management fee. One of those components is that it addresses operating needs. The other being that it supports infrastructure. But we're going to break down that infrastructure support into two different categories. And for the purpose of our conversation as it relates to the management fee, we're only going to talk about capital maintenance. So maintaining existing assets. There is not going to be a component that we're going to recommend in the management and license fee that addresses new infrastructure or new projects that we call capital improvements. And this next two slides are going to kind of explain why. So typically we talk about those three buckets, the bucket that's operating, the bucket that's capital maintenance, and that bucket that is new infrastructure. And currently today, we have a funding mechanism for new infrastructure, and that consists of private donations, of grants, and of some designated half-cent countywide retailers' sales tax. And this next slide is intended to show that that part works. We don't need to fix that bucket. To date, really 2 years from now, in 2022, we expect that we will have used 5 3/4 of $10 million of designated half-cent sales tax to complete $19 million worth of work. So that's the beauty of that mechanism to address capital infrastructure. We think that we're going to be able to use that last $4 2/4 million over the next 8 to 10 years and complete another $24 million worth of projects. So that part works. So we're going to set it off to the side. We're only going to speak to operating support and capital maintenance. Now, last week, I showed this slide. I've had this slide for a long time. Matter of fact, the top line of this slide really developed pre-pandemic. The world's just simply different now. And as such, we've got to look at things differently. The middle line on here, that neutral general fund impact model that I think most of us thought we were heading towards, I think we know enough about that now. We've learned enough over this past week that maybe there's not such a thing. And you're going to hear about that more in the future. but these conversations need to play out more over the next couple of weeks. So, along with the license and management fee, there's other financial related matters that this management agreement will address. And there's a few slides in here that speak to kind of each of those categories. It talks about Friends of the Zoo being able to maintain revenue, to set fees. It actually obligates Friends of the Zoo to continue to raise donations to enhance the zoo. But when we talk about that license and management fee, we know that we're going to have to just be more diligent now. It's just a hard conversation today. We think we can get there, and we think we can bring you a proposal, maybe even more than one, but it's just going to take more time than we thought. It is going to address capital maintenance, but we don't know how just yet. We know how we've done capital maintenance in the past. We know what the plan is for capital maintenance 2019, 2020. But we've got to figure out what the best strategy is for the future. And it's probably not what we did in the past, and it's probably not what we're doing today. But we're going to continue to work through that dilemma, and we will bring you a proposal. And I suppose I should have done this up front. I should have introduced the we. On the city side of the table, there's Jessica Lamandola as the finance director, Lisa Robertson as the city attorney. Jessica is supported by Steve Wade. Lisa is supported mostly by Catherine Walter. And then, of course, there's Jackie Russell. On the Friends of the Zoo side of the table, there's the executive committee. That consists of the 4 officers, Pat Colley as board president, Fred Patton as vice president, Shane Beavers as board treasurer, Kelly Kelsey as board secretary, and 2 at-large members, Dinah Cox and Tim Resner. I'm somewhere in the middle, but I'm about to distance myself a little bit and let those 2 groups of people work through this dilemma. And then once it's worked through, we'll bring those proposals back here. So I want to go back to that capital infrastructure slide and that comment that I made that if we can use that $4.25 million to leverage $24 million worth of new projects, about 3 big infrastructure projects at the zoo over the next 10 years. At some point in time, you saw numbers that looked like this, that this was the recommendation for capital maintenance on average about into the future. But if we can build those new projects, and if we can take a little different approach, we can cut these numbers almost in half. Because those new projects that we build eliminate deferred and capital maintenance. So it's issues like this that we just need more time to study so that we can bring you the best proposals that we can. The management and license agreement will continue to protect ways for the city to pass money to Friends of the Zoo that's designated to the zoo. And it will keep both organizations focused on the future of that organization. Because if you remember, FOTS is an organization whose sole purpose, the only thing they're chartered to do, is to support the zoo. But the zoo is always going to belong to the city. So when we talk about that public-private partnership, we're talking about a partnership, that there's a relationship between these two organizations into perpetuity to protect this asset for this community. So I mentioned I'd wrap up my presentation with this slide. This is the last slide in your handout, or if you're watching over Zoom, it's the last slide in the presentation. 3 weeks ago, when we put this calendar together, we thought we would be back before you next Tuesday with a recommendation for a license and management fee. We know we're not going to have that yet. We also know that it's really important to agree on the fee first, because kind of why discuss personal property insurance until you know that there's a fee that's going to support this transition. So we're going to pull the October 20th item, and the next time you'll hear about this topic is the first meeting in November, which is November 10th. November 3rd being election night. And when you hear about this item on November 10th, I'm not going to be the one standing at the podium. We're going to ask Friends of the Zoo to make a presentation on the future vision of what the Topeka Zoo and Conservation Center could look like. What does Friends of the Zoo hope to accomplish through making this transition? What benefits will the community see? Why is it the right thing for this governing body to support this? On November 10th, that's how this conversation is going to be brought back up. That will be followed by a conversation regarding the license and management fee. That conversation may need to occur in executive session. I'm not at those very often, so I'm going to let somebody else speak to that. But those are the next steps. The next time you'll hear this topic is what the future could look like, proposals on what an appropriate management fee could look like. Once we're through that conversation, then we're going to line up these other topics. The personal property, the insurance requirements, who insures what, and then all the issues centering around the employees. So we would be happy to stand for any questions that you have tonight. Fred or Pat are more than willing to answer any questions you may have. A lot has happened over the last week. We've met, the FOTS Executive Committee has met twice with city staff. The challenge is we're still generating questions. Once we've got enough questions out there, we can begin to answer them. And once we have enough answers, we can present that to the council. And with that, I'll stop talking.
Thank you for the presentation, Brendan. Councilman Lesser.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Hey, Brendan, question. Are we still looking at something that's similar to what we talked about last spring? From what I can recall, hearing we talked about starting at a 2.5 mils and then range somewhere in that, and then eventually moving back down to 2, with you guys responsible, or with FOTS responsible for not only operations but capital products. Is that something, is that kind of where the conversation is still at, what we're still looking at, or has that changed?
Let me start, and if I need to quit talking, just somebody say so. That's clearly where we started on the table. I just don't know if that still works. And so that is, that presented that crossroad of, well, we could just say it doesn't work and we can quit, or we can keep working on this issue and see what's appropriate today. So we're working on the issue. By November 10th, we can answer that. That was a lot of words for, no, I don't think we're there anymore.
Okay.
Councilman Duncan.
Well, I guess that was part of my question, I guess, but I guess follow up to that. When you say we're not there, and I understand you're a few weeks out from maybe making a determination, are you specifically talking about shifting that conversation from talking in mills versus dollars? Or are you talking about something else? Because obviously, and that was one of my questions, was a lot of the material refers specifically to mills, which are obviously very different than it can be depending upon how those property values go up versus actually a set dollar amount that would be determined over that period of time. So, I mean, is that what you're talking about, is changing that conversation from mills to dollars, or talking about the numbers in general?
I'd like to answer that.
Yeah.
When we're having this discussion, it involves both the dollars that are needed and then looking at what is the future. We all know that, as are all of our budgets, when we look at them, they have a little bit of rise that needs to occur if you look at salary increases and so forth. So you need to look at both sides of things. You got to have a base dollar amount that helps you to get started, and then look at how are you increasing that. Generally, you know that 1 mil over time creeps up, and so then looking at that and negotiating that. And so that's figuring out where we start for a dollar figure in order to make it viable, and what pots of pie come together in order to make that happen, and then what's sustainable long-term as you look at the growth, and what is the responsibility of the city going to be in that time frame, and then what is the responsibility of FOTS going to be in that time frame. And so that's what we're trying to figure out, is the start point, and then how do you grow this long-term, and what each entity can afford to do in that process.
Well, then the comment I'd make, at least to the public, is, or at least from my perspective, and I think everyone is on board with this, is just so there's clarification for people who may look at these documents, we're talking about existing mills. At least to my point, we're not having a conversation about raising any mill. And I know you're not saying that. I'm clarifying that for the public who's saying, wait, you're talking in mills. Does that mean you're looking at some sort of increase? And at least at this point, absolutely, we're not. My other question was, has Friends put together a budget to say, if this transition happens January 1, assuming we get everything worked out, I mean, all those variables and this, is there an actual budget out there that says this would be our budget for 21, 22 that's been put together?
Down to the dollar, yes.
Okay, and how, and I don't need exact numbers, how different is that? And part of my question is, I guess what I haven't seen in any of this stuff, and I know we're going to talk about property, but I actually haven't even seen in any of the timeline, is how has it been accounted for the fact that you currently don't have an HR department? The city handles that. I'm assuming you're going to need someone to handle HR. I mean, the city currently handles a lot of the finances for the zoo or issues when they come up. You don't necessarily have a dedicated, I mean, if you're taking on all those new responsibilities, have those roles been factored into the budget and positions created or departments created? I mean, what is the vision for what the structure of the new zoo looks like with all of the things that the city currently does for the zoo that would transition to Friends of the Topeka Zoo?
So yes, we've had all of those conversations. I made a comment at one time that, you know, if you get away from that zoo advisors model, it's going to place more burden on volunteers and board members. And fortunately, we're a community that has great volunteers and board members. But if you look at Friends of the Zoo, Friends of the Zoo has the same pieces that we have on the city side. So they've got that employee handbook. They've got professional human resources services, currently contract with the HR partners. They've, Dinah, who you met last week, she was recruited to that board because she is I'm going to get this all wrong, she's a human resources professional with like 6 letters after the end of her name. She's credentialed for that advice, to provide that, not just to the current Friends of the Zoo organization, but to whatever the future FOTS looks like. So it's the same thing with right down the line with legal services, with financial services. And with the size that Friends of the Zoo is today, it typically is a blend of staff function and outside resources, contracting with a local accounting firm. Actually, they contract with multiple local accounting firms so that whoever does their month-to-month books is different than who does the audit. So all those pieces are in place. Largely, if we're going to talk about a smaller license fee than maybe we were talking about last spring, we're going to talk about slower growth. So while some of our earlier models had like a bookkeeper position in them, this current model that we're discussing really takes kind of the existing teams from both organizations, puts them under one hat. There's a person on my staff that, enters data into the city's, whatever you call Lawson. What do you call Lawson? It's into its financial system. There's that function on Friends of the Zoo. We can now use one person to do both, so you get some efficiency, and then you start to spread that efficiency to different parts of the organization where it's needed. But yes, there is actually a 5-year budget model for the combined organization on whatever day one is.
Well, it'd be nice to see that, I guess, at some point. And maybe this isn't what you meant. I guess my only concern with sort of what you said was, I mean, if the board are volunteers and you have a HR complaint, I mean, something, sexual harassment, are you telling me that a volunteer board member will handle those complaints versus a paid employee who specializes in HR?
No.
Who's part of it? Okay, I mean, that's what I'm trying to clarify, is that and so it would be nice at some point to see that organizational chart to also give us some clarity on what that looks like.
And just for clarity, or transparency, it wouldn't be a staff person that would handle that complaint either. It would be a third-party human resources firm that would handle that type of complaint.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Sure.
Other questions? Councilwoman Hiller.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate that you put some time into it and come back. I guess I want to make a couple of key points. The first one is, have mercy on us here. I guess I'm very sensitive from the public and the council point of view that and the staff, that we have council members that were not involved in the first conversations about this. And so I would encourage, when you come back, to go back to what you did for those of us who were here, which is, why do we even want to do this? That we're somehow dragging pieces forward, but admonition to both of you and Fred, however it's going to be presented, let's back up. If the reason has changed or anything, let's back up to why we're even talking about this, where we want to go with it. For instance, my recollection was that y'all wanted to be able to fly and grow the zoo and not be dragged down by the affiliation with the city, in short, both in terms of obligations and processes, as well as prospective funders, that you thought you could raise more money if you weren't affiliated as closely, weren't a city department anymore. And so if that's wrong or if it's changed, it will help, I think, all of us to get kind of that nugget of where you are now and what your vision real briefly is of ownership of the land, ownership of the buildings, ownership of the animals, responsibility for operating budget, responsibility for maintenance and support of those facilities, animals, and our land. and then growth and new things. And I say that for two reasons, both to get those, just clarify what we're talking about here, but please be thoughtful of us when you use the term CIP and CIB as, you're kind of segregating it in what you gave us today. But for us, new items and capital maintenance are both included there. And so if you could use CIP, new items and, help us so that we can connect your language that you're using for your thinking in with how we normally operate, which because I think there's still confusion and easily could continue to be about, who's going to raise money and build the new items, and then whether those stay all the way on your side of the ledger, or whether y'all are hoping that anything you build new then slides back into something you're going to ask us to take care of. I think that's kind of where we left off last time. It sounds like that's what you're looking at now, and hopefully you'll either decide what you're proposing or have an A or B plan by the time we talk about it again.
That is the plan, yes.
And then if you could, again, be thoughtful for our new members and the new staff as far as that goes, who weren't there for those initial discussions, so that we can all be grounded in the same place. And then one other thing is I'm at this point not exactly sure what you were doing with that calendar to change it from the slides. It sounds like you're planning to do both a presentation on your vision as well as the license and management fee discussion on the 10th?
Yes.
Okay, and they'll either all be together or split into an executive session for some reason.
Correct.
I certainly I want to support Councilman Duncan in terms of, I think even though there was discussion, it really helped those of us at first to have that 5-year budget that you had 2 years ago or whenever it was, as well as a proposal so we could look through and see how it hung. It certainly helped me to understand what your vision was and to be able to ask questions and get a yes or no and feel like I knew where we were.
Absolutely.
And take your time. I mean, if you need more at this point, but thank you for thinking it through and adjusting your process a little bit.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Additional comments or questions? I see that Pat is here. I sent them a message through the chat because he's unmuted, and I didn't know if he needed to say something. I wanted to make sure that I recognized him.
No, appreciate you doing that. Definitely here to answer any questions that you need. Hi, everybody. Don't have any comments at this time, but we'll definitely be looking forward to speaking with you more here in the future.
Anybody else? Okay.
Thank you.
At this point in time, we are going to move on to the public comment. The first person signed up to speak, if they are still in the room, is George Kitts.
I don't see anyone getting up there.
Okay. Raymond Collins.
Madam Mayor, City Manager, governing body, my name is Raymond Collins. I am president of Central Highland Park Neighborhood Improvement Association. Last night we had our October meeting and there was several city citizens that were voiced a fear of their well-being in our neighborhood. I also have had times where I did not want to go outside of my home because of the people that are living and moving around in our area. I don't want to seem upset, but when we call the police, if we're lucky, we'll get a 5-minute talk with them. We don't have enough city police in our community to take care of us. Our Latino members of our community also feel that they're not being protected. And everybody in our neighborhood seems that way. So what I'm here to say, on November the 9th, at our normal meeting, we are having what is called a neighborhood safety meeting. This was voted on last night to have a special safety meeting, and we would like all interested parties, our city manager, our mayor, all of our city council members, to come to our meeting. It's at Hillcrest Community Center. It starts at 6:30, and we would love to have everybody there so that they can hear what our citizens in our NIA are having to say about things, the way they're progressing in our community. And that's all I got to say.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Collins.
Thank you.
Ms. Lassiter.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council, and everybody who's in the House or remains in the House. I'm here tonight to just address Ms. Valdivia Alcala, number one, and that is because I just came back into town and read an article in the paper.
Ma'am?
I'm sorry?
One of the things that we're working on is to ensure that none of the public comments or the remarks that are made specifically to one council member or any direct member of the governing body. At the time that you would like to make any public statements, you could make your announcements and your public comments with regards to a specific issue.
Okay, thank you for that. I appreciate what you're sharing. It's not a negative at all. It's a compliment about a comment that was made. And that to me is a public comment. So it's with reference to the Brown v. Board, and she addressed an issue about the Brown v. Board, and I came tonight to address the same issue. And that is because it is a public comment. I want to say that Brown v. Board and the 1954 decision, I was a part of Brown 1, Brown 2, and Brown 3. So I wanted to address the fact that we're here to build up and not tear down what we have in our city, that we have built something great. I was in Darmstadt, Germany, and they asked me to speak about the 1954 decision, which I did. In the infancy of this, I was a little black girl in the East Topeka area, and I used to ride a bus 12 blocks to the Washington School. And when the case came down, I was able to walk 4 blocks with my Hispanic Mexican friend, with my Caucasian friend. So there was the 3 of us, and they called us 3 Musketeers. So we were able to come together because the decision was not about racism. It was not about division. It was about unity. So my presentation tonight is about what we have in Topeka, Kansas that we can value. Also, as an educator, myself, Pamela Johnson Betts, Mrs. Darlene Palmer, and I'm going to try to hurry through this as I'm a 40-year veteran of Topeka Public Schools. We're one of the ones who started the multicultural program in 501 schools. It's not even about boasting, it's about giving information. And my position as a citizen in this city is that when we have opportunity to speak good, when we have opportunity to build up, when we have opportunity to give information instead of misinformation, to me this is one of the venues that I'm using to do that. I had a position in the school as the principal, and I said we need to have a multicultural program. And so being in a school that was predominantly Caucasian or white, they said, oh, well, let's talk about Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks. I said, oh, no. Let's talk about our white. But by the way, I said, white's a color. Let's talk about your culture. So I want our children to have the opportunity to hear, where are you from? Are you Irish? Are you Swedish? Are you Danish? Are you Russian? They said, oh, I never thought about multicultural in that, and then from that aspect. I said, that's why I'm here. So we're going to have a week of presentation, and at the end of the week, then we can talk about our African Americans, our Mexicans, our indigenous people as well. One of my teachers, point tonight, said, can I have another minute or half minute?
You have it, and you can host that minute.
I still got a minute.
You still have a
thank you.
minute.
Okay, real quickly. She said, I'm so impressed. She said, I'm going to do some research. My family's from Germany. She found out that one of the towns in Germany was named after her family, so she was impressed. The other piece of that is that her great-grandfather came through Ellis Island in New York and New Jersey back in the day, and she was shocked because her great-grandfather, who you would say he's white or European, he was considered a dark white, and there was a light white. And so when he came through Ellis Island, there were certain places that he could not live. So all of that to say to you tonight that we are born in the image of God. We are born from one blood. I have mixed race. You have mixed race, whether you admit it or not. That's up to you. I think that we're in a position in this city to bring about peace, to bring about unity, and if there's something that needs to be clarified, we're in a position to do just that. So the reason I'm standing once again tonight is about the Brown v. Board is not a racist agenda. It's a humane agenda, and it's about the human race. That's what I wanted to say. But I do also want to add something else, but I know my time is up. And that's about Stone's Folly, and that's because everywhere I go, I
Ms.
say
Lassiter,
that we are in the Midwest.
Do you need additional time, Ms.
Thank you.
Lassiter?
Yes.
Do you need more time?
Oh, I really don't. I say we're the heart of God. Bless you. Goodbye.
Thank you, Ms. Sandy. So good to see you.
Yes.
The next person signed up to speak is Paul Astley.
Madam Mayor and council members, I've never done nothing like this. People in my community, which is the Caravan Mobile Home Park in North Topeka, most of us in the beginning were elderly. I'll be 80 next year, and we're on fixed incomes. And the owners, this is the third order since I've been there, and our rent always keeps rising, and they keep telling us that they're going to fix the roads, they're going to fix the overgrown trees, that they're going to do this and that, and we wind up spending more money and less services. My issue tonight is about the overgrown trees. I've been all over the city trying to find somebody that knew what the laws was, and I found out there's no laws about overgrown trees that threaten the life and limb and your property. And it's a real public, I would say a public safety issue. I've seen safety public issues for less than that be addressed by 3 and 4 police cars. And here's 5 trees over just my place. I own my place, but you can't get insurance. And I can't blame them. Who would loan insurance? You know, at least these 5 trees are. Anybody could tell they're dead. And we've been promised for the last 10 years that something would be done with them before they got that bad. And I don't know where to turn to try to get some kind of legislation or codes that would make people safe. I'm sorry. Yes, ma'am.
We are not to engage in back and forth. This is one of the things that we said. But what I will ask, sir, would you please, we only have one more person signed up to speak after you. It seems that your councilwoman would like to speak with you with regards to this issue, and the city manager can also come to you. The public comment only has 4 more minutes left in it, so if you would not mind giving us the privilege of you waiting for just a minute so that we can assist you.
Sure. Sure. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. The last person signed up to speak is Patrick Grogan.
I don't believe they're here.
So at this time, we have somebody waiting to be taken care of, so we are going to recess into a few minutes before we enter our executive session. To start outlining the parameters of the executive session, could the city attorney please read? Oh gosh, I forgot the announcements. Yes, we proceed first with announcements.
Okay, on the October 20th agenda, we have one appointment for the Topeka Public Building Commission. We have routine items on the consent agenda. Action items will include a request to extend the deadline for the Fire Service Special Committee report, a resolution of support for the Transportation Alternatives Grant, and then we also will have an item, a motion to approve the addition of an ordinance to the agenda for discussion and consideration by the governing body. And then we will also have the motion proposed by Deputy Mayor Emerson regarding the utility contractor license and repealing code sections 1013-280 and 1321-30. And then we removed the zoo, that will go to November 10th, and the utility contractor license discussion was also full.
City Manager.
Thank you. My first item I have in my announcements is to announce that Southwest Gauge from Southwest 37th to Southwest 45th will be open to traffic today, at the end of the day. Some work will remain outside of the roadway. Workers will cordon off the traffic lane using orange cones at locations where work will be performed. Also, there are 4 areas in the center turn lane that are marked by orange cones while concrete cures around survey markers. Those will be removed in a few days. The project started May 19th, and the contractor was given until December 4th to have the road open. Bettis Asphalt and Construction completed the job 52, I repeat, 52 days ahead of schedule, so very helpful in that respect. City of Topeka will host a mobile pop-up food event in specific neighborhoods through October. Neighbors will receive a food box consisting of meat, fresh produce, cheese, a gallon of milk, and community information resource bag. The boxes will be distributed on a first-come, first-served basis. The dates and locations are the downtown neighborhood is Wednesday, October 14th, 6 to 8 p.m., and that will be at 433rd Southwest Harrison Street. The Tennessee Town neighborhood, Thursday, October 15th, from 6 to 8 p.m. at 1195 Southwest Buchanan Street. The other item that I wanted to bring up was, it was mentioned by the clerk regarding the item to determine about putting something on the agenda. Councilwoman Valdivia-Alcala brought forward the idea of having on the agenda, requested to have on the agenda, the item related to consideration of a citizen review board. Given that the current committee is hearing items on that, I didn't put it on the agenda, but in order to make sure that there is the possibility, if the governing body wants to go ahead and hear that, provision allows that if 6 council members, 6 governing body members were interested in having it on the agenda, they could vote so, and then the item would be considered. So basically what I'm looking at is leaving it up to the governing body to decide if this is an item that they want to discuss on the 20th, as was proposed by Councilwoman Valdivia-Alcala.
My announcements tonight are pretty simple. It is the middle of October, and we had the extension of census. I want to ask everybody the same thing that Councilman Padilla has been asking of all of you. I know that we've been doing a really good job with the census in our community and in the state of Kansas, by the way. But it's important that right now we make sure that we get everybody counted. Así que para todos los que están escuchando, recuerden que todos ustedes cuentan. Por favor, llenen el censo. Es extremadamente importante. Son $48,000 cada 10 años que se pierden. It's $48,000 every 10 years that we lose per family when we don't fill out the census. So I know that we were doing pretty well compared to where we were at 10 years ago. But we can always improve on that. So it's my strong encouragement to our communities to please do so. The last thing that I'll say is, I know that everybody's tired. Everybody, I tell you what, and carrying this around and not being able to be seen is taxing. It's uncomfortable. The fact that I am not in the council chambers, I already had a scare. As you guys know, I had a direct exposure. And at the same time that I had that direct exposure, I also had a bad migraine and bad sinus infections. And, you know, it was 2 weeks of being stuck in the house without being able to go anywhere. So I do respect the virus, which is why I typically do these meetings via Zoom, because I understand that I want to make sure that my council members don't get exposed to me. Like right now, I'm having really bad allergies, and tell you what, having allergies and sinus infections in the time of COVID is no fun. Everybody looks at you interesting every time that you sniffle or when you cough, like I've been doing lately, clearing my throat. But to all of our friends, just remember, just the mask is an act of kindness. We still have cases in our community. And as a community, we're doing pretty good. So this is not a you're doing bad. This is just an acknowledgement to let you guys know that I know that we're all tired about this, but hopefully there will be an end. The more that we keep taking care of each other, the better that we're doing for our economy, and just quite frankly, taking care of each other. So, Councilwoman Valdivia Alcala.
Thank you, Mayor. I did want to, let me go to my note here. The ordinance that I introduced last week for the Citizen Review Board, I do want to go ahead and withdraw that. My understanding is one or more of the organizations that I've been working with for months will be taking this forward to someone or someone's on this special committee to dialogue with them to perhaps have this added on as a discussion item. My sense was, having not talked with anybody about it or heard anything, that it wasn't going to be put on the agenda and that there obviously wasn't going to be the votes. So now it's in the hands of the organizations that have worked so hard on it to be presented to this committee of 3 and then see what happens with it. So I just wanted to say that. Also, October 17th, the Oakland Neighborhood Cleanup is occurring at the Oakland Community Center, 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. I also wanted to thank Trey George with Topeka Housing Authority for taking me on a wonderful 2-hour journey across what is happening in the realm of public housing. And there was some sites that I saw that were just really, really incredible. So I want to thank him for that. Also, I wanted to remind folks that live in the section of North Topeka that is impacted and where Station 11 is utilized. I happened to read something on CJ Online about the city manager wanting to bring this up for possible discussion, the whole thing about, you know, closing 11, whether there should be a new fire station in southwest Topeka, et cetera, et cetera. There had been a committee formed for it, et cetera, because of COVID. That had been put on the back burner, but I did read in this article that he wanted to bring it back up. People in District 2, please understand also that Engine 1 and Truck 9 continue to have closures from time to time. I'm going to get some more definitive information and pass that on to you by email. But I would definitely encourage this, the folks in the side of North Topeka where they are most impacted and utilize Station 11 to let your voices be heard. Call me, 233-7110. Call the city manager, call the mayor, call your council people to demand that that station stay open in this time of COVID. You know, to me, even if we consider it somewhere down the road, it's kind of, seems to me when we're tight budgets, laying off people, et cetera, that this dialogue is maybe too soon, but the dialogue is worth having. But I just wanted to give that shout out to North Topeka folks, so thank you.
Councilwoman Ortiz.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to encourage everybody to get their flu shot. I got mine today and I feel sick, but I'm going to hang in there till after the meeting. But it does happen. I just want to send a shout out to Trey Hopkins and his brother. They had the Flavor Wagon in North Topeka this weekend, and they sell barbecue, and they were sold out in 2 hours. And you know, that's just awesome to see some young people. I knew their father when he was alive, and I've known the boys since they were really little. When I say those are my kids, those are my kids' kids. It was just awesome to see the support that came out. And this young man has had this vision for quite a while, and so he was able to get some grants, looks forward to moving the Flavor Wagon all around, and it was just a really good night. Awesome that he sold out to a young man that didn't think he could do it. And I just want to continue to encourage our young people. You know, we have a lot of young people here in Topeka that are just frustrated. They're frustrated with what's going on, and they're trying to find their way. We've all been there. So I just try to encourage all of those that I can. Also, I just wanted to say before I end is that we had another death that was really close to me. I've known the family since they were, I went to school with them in grade school. The young lady and her 13-year-old daughter that was killed, we will be doing another walk. If you see something, say something. That family knows more than what they're saying. And also with the young man that was shot in District 1, that family, they know more than what's going on. And you know, I read Karen's text, and we just live in a different world. You know, some of these families, they want to handle it themselves. But the reality is, we need the police, and the police needs the community, and we all need to come together to make sure that we get all of this off of our streets. And so we're planning a big rally. If you see something, say something. And I hope that everybody would be encouraged. And there's a lot of people grieving right now. They want to handle it themselves, and they're serious. And that's not where we're at today. We need to continue to get with the police, continue to help them to get these people off the street, and let the judicial system have their way and have their say. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Don't forget about our kids. Their schedules are crazy. They go to school. They got some of them going to school in the morning, some of them going to school in the afternoon. So there's a lot of activity that's going on all day to and from school districts. So let us not forget them as well. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll keep it short. I just thought we should, stop and maybe celebrate a little bit tonight that we had two items come before us that actually represents growth in our community. A thing up in North Topeka and a thing right over here in District 4. And even though Chuck Dolmeyer's things out in the county, it's great to have growth. That's what we need more of in our community. So that was fantastic. I appreciate all the work that Mr. Finder and his group are doing towards that. Thank you.
Councilman Padilla.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to follow up on a couple of things that Councilwoman Ortiz and Deputy Mayor Emerson just mentioned about new business in the community still continuing to pop up across the community, which is, I think, very encouraging when a lot of other cities are not experiencing that. And I was in a Zoom meeting today with GTP and the Bloomberg Group, and we were revisiting a few things in Momentum 2022, and one of the things that came up was entrepreneurship and how we continue to encourage that, and not just encourage it, but enable, assist, and help those who want to continue to be business people, entrepreneurs in their own right. A lot of folks don't think that they have the idea that could turn into a business, but we need to be able to put them in a position where they get the training and the help to develop those ideas and really put it into practice and continue to grow those opportunities in our community. So I appreciate that Momentum 2022 is really seriously looking at that. And I encourage us all, whenever we know of a new business opening or a new effort, to give some encouragement, direct them toward resources. The last thing I want to mention is, and I appreciate the mayor bringing up the census again. I was just informed today that there was a breaking news, as they like to say, another decision on the census. But until anything is official, if you haven't filled out your census form yet, please do so, because there hasn't been anything definitive that I know of as an end date for collecting that information. So please, thank you, Mayor, for reminding us. And the last thing I'd like to remind everybody about is voting. Make sure that you have a plan for voting. If you're going to vote early, do so you can maybe avoid any long lines that may be there. If you're going to do mail-in, please pay attention to the directions for mail-in ballots. They're not complicated, but make sure you read the back of the envelope, sign it, do everything you need to so that that ballot does get counted. Everybody else, thank you, take care, continue to wear the mask. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilwoman Nager.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Padilla, you took my thunder. I was going to say all of that stuff. As far as filling out the census, if you haven't already done so, I'll give you the website. It is 2020, the number's 2020, census.gov. And the respond button, that's too bright, is right there. You just have to click on it. And then as far as voting by mail or advance voting, you can, those are going to start going out as soon as, I think, tomorrow or Thursday. But you can request a mail-in ballot up to October 27th. Today was the last day to register to vote, but if you haven't already requested a mail-in ballot and would like to do so, you have until October 27th. In-person early voting at the Shawnee County election office will start on October 19th. And as somebody who has done early in-person, by mail, I've been very happy with the results. I've been counted whenever I've participated in these ways. And make sure that your voice is heard, both as far as the census and the election coming up. I also just want to say thank you to the invitations from Collins Park Neighborhood Association and Girl Scout Troop 1960. I spoke with both of those groups this weekend, and it was really rewarding, and it was wonderful to interact with people in the community. Even though we were separated by our mask, it was great to be with people again. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councilman Dobler.
I have no comments. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilman Duncan.
Just two things this evening, Madam Mayor. First is the state of Kansas and Topeka sort of continues to try to chip away at our internet access problem. The governor's office has established an office to distribute some grants and address the problem. Cox Communications got $1.4 million, I believe, or $1.2 million for Topeka, Dodge City, and somewhere else. Sadly, it's only going to help about 300 homes in Topeka, but that's good side is that's 300 more than we'll have it before. I have a meeting with Cox tomorrow, and I will to have this conversation about what we can do as a city, if nothing else, to create some bridge internet for our students in all of our school districts from now till the end of the year, and we'll see what comes of that. Hopefully, something. So we will continue to chip away at what is a primary issue, not just for people working at home, but for our children as they move forward in this crazy school year. The second thing is, tomorrow is an important day in my household, probably more for me than my wife, but it's my wedding anniversary. I remember it every year for a few reasons. First of all, her birthday is also on Thursday, so if I ever forget those two dates back to back, I'm in big trouble. So I made sure that they were important in there. I also had it engraved on my wedding ring on the outside because I know I'm going to get older and I want to forget. Also, I love my wife and I don't think I'll forget. So I want to wish her a happy anniversary and then follow up a happy birthday this week. So thank you very much.
Happy anniversary, Councilman. Councilman Lesser.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would, at this point in time, I sent an email to City Manager this morning, and I, at this point, along with, at this point in time, I know Councilman Duncan, Emerson, and Dobler, as well as I did see in an email from Councilman Padilla to City Manager Trout. I would like to, at this point, to request City Manager that you either have Mr. Wade in Finance or a representative of Ms. Robertson's legal staff complete an evaluation and audit of the status of the Sherwood Crossing development at 29th and Wanamaker. A number of those individuals who I've named there have received from at least 4 different parties concerns with the status of that development and issues that are partaking as such. And I think that being the case, we have a responsibility to our constituents that as a body, when we, award incentives to respond when asked to be accountable by other various partners in our community involved in such development. So I would like to make that request, City Manager. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll look into it, take care of that.
Councilwoman Hiller.
Thank you, Mayor. Couple quick things. One, I appreciate the city manager and maybe Deputy Mayor Emerson and whoever all was involved in pulling the plumbing issues and getting us focused on readdressing those. I think we can fix them to accomplish what the original amendments had in mind, as well as the concerns that have been raised. So thank you for that. I want to shout out to everyone in town who has worked their tail off on census as well as voter registration. Today is the last day for voter registration, but people have worked like crazy to get the word out, to engage people in events. I think in particular, this last weekend, I think there were 2 different events at Hillcrest, just as a for instance. I appreciate in advance all the people who are continuing to work on voter registration and engagement throughout this time. My colleagues did a great job. There is the march on the Capitol steps this coming Saturday in recognition of the Million Man March, but definitely a focus toward getting people engaged and voting. It's been pretty incredible to see, and I'm just proud of everybody and thankful. October 23rd and 24th is the neighborhood cleanup in the Tennesseetown NIA, so shout out. I think everybody in the neighborhood should have a card, but hopefully people will use those dumpsters and fill them up. And last but not least, Councilman Duncan mentioned broadband. Thanks to Councilman Dobler, that item, if everyone isn't aware of it, is on the docket for the Public Health and Safety Committee. And so if anybody had, that committee is Councilman Dobler, Councilwoman Ortiz, and me. If anybody has any issues or any intel about broadband, please send it in to us or come and join us. We'll do our best. I know that Councilman Dobler has already learned a whole lot. Things are changing, but it went from just kind of looking at a hardware infrastructure thing to who's being served and realizing that it wasn't just kids or people looking for jobs, but actually in the course of the Social Services Committee meeting, we learned how it's impacting seniors and their connectivity and their just being able to Zoom on an exercise program remotely and things like that. So we're really wanting to understand as much as we can, not only the technical of what kind of service we have in the city, as well as what's on deck, what the possibilities are, or what we need to do. The pricing issues, is it just money? I I don't want to steal your thunder, Councilman, but one of the things that in his investigation, Councilman Dobler figured out was that there are many people that are, that could take advantage of the reduced rate, the substantially reduced rates, but somehow they're not. And so in poking into that, it's emerging that if people don't have a computer or aren't sure how to set up a router or how to actually manage the hardware that's needed in the home to take advantage of that connectivity, that's something we hadn't heard much discussion about and are eager to look at as well. Stuck our foot in it, took a deep dive in it, help us out, citizens as well as colleagues, if there's anything that we should know. And that's it, thank you.
Okay, right on time, typically at the time that the council gets a break. But before we go into this 10-minute break, we will hear the parameters of our executive session.
She was.
Am I on now?
Yes, you are, ma'am.
The motion, okay. The motion is to recess into executive session for a period of time not to exceed 45 minutes to discuss confidential employment matters pertaining to non-elected personnel as justified by KSA 75-4319B1 in order to protect the privacy of those discussed. To aid in the discussion, the following individuals should be present: members of the governing body and Human Resources Director Jackie Russell. No action will be taken when the open meeting resumes in the governing body chambers.
We have heard the parameters. What is the pleasure of the body?
So moved.
We have a motion for approval by the Deputy Mayor. We have a second by Councilwoman Ortiz. All of those in favor, we proceed voting by roll call.
Mayor De La Isla?
Yes.
Councilmembers Hiller?
Yes.
Valdivia Aquila?
Yes.
Ortiz?
Yes.
Emerson?
Yes.
Padilla?
Yes.
Nager?
Yes.
Dobler?
Yes.
Duncan?
Yes.
And Lesser.
Yes.
We have 10 yes, motion carries.
All right, we will recess into a break, not to exceed 10, I'll say 5 minutes, 6 minutes. And then we will start our executive session not to exceed 45 minutes. Thank you very much. This will allow us time also to clear the chambers.
And
Okay, we're ready, Mayor.
The more you know. All right, so at this point in time, we are in need of extending our discussion. No action has been taken, and we would like to propose an extension not to exceed an additional 25 minutes. Do we have a motion to follow an additional 25 minutes under the same parameters? Councilwoman Nager makes the motion. Deputy Mayor seconds it. We all proceed by roll call. Jackie, if you could call the roll call.
Councilmember Hiller?
Start with the mayor.
I'm sorry, Mayor De La Isla?
Yes.
Councilmember Hiller?
Yes.
Councilmember Valdivia Aquila?
Yes.
Councilmember Padilla?
Yes.
Councilmember Duncan?
Yes.
Uh-oh.
I can't see.
She'll get him.
Emerson.
Ortiz?
Ortiz?
No.
Emerson?
Yes.
Dobler?
Yes.
And Lesser?
Yes.
I also vote yes.
All right, so
She
we
disappeared
have
from me. She disappeared. She wasn't there.
9 out of 10 are yeses, so we are able to recess again into executive session. No action has been taken in the first executive session. We still remain under the same parameters. We will not exceed
We
25
lost you,
minutes.
Mayor. I don't know.
What's happening?
I don't know if they can hear you on TV.
Back there, though, which
We
is
cannot,
kinda weird.
yeah, they might be able to hear you on TV. We cannot hear you in the chamber. We're working on it.
Okay, could you still hear me? Could you hear me now?
Yeah, it's supposed to be muted right now.
I can hear you great.
I hear you
We can hear
fine.
none of you, so.
Can't see you, but I can hear you.
Go home.
I don't,
Well, they might be able to hear you on TV, so watch yourself.
it's not, what in the world is happening right now?
Let us know when we are back in privacy.
Oh, my. We can't hear it out here if you can hear me.
We just think we're the center of their universe, you know?
Did you ever watch?
We're ready, Mayor.
Okay, we are coming out of our executive session. We're still not done with this item. Under the same parameters, we're finding ourselves with a need to extend for a period not to exceed 10 minutes. Do we have a motion to proceed?
So moved.
Okay, we have Councilman Lesser and Councilwoman Hiller that I saw making the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carries except for one. It's a 9 to 1 vote. Dissenting vote is Councilwoman Ortiz. We are re-engaging in our same executive session under the same parameters, not to exceed 10 minutes.
We're ready. We're back, Mayor.
All right, the executive meeting has adjourned. No action has been taken at this point in time. The whole meeting now is adjourned. All of you have a wonderful evening.